Don't give them a base. Let's start from the fourth line down. Shmuel Amar. Now we'll tell you about here a woman who was married to one man, and an aide came to Chutz La'aretz and said her husband died, and Beis Din allowed her to get remarried to somebody else, and she married somebody else, and then her first husband came back, and she has to get divorced from both, and she loses all rights and privileges from both, and the children are mamzerin from both. Everything goes wrong for her. So why is that? The question is, why do I assume? Why does the second one have to divorce her? I mean, obviously she was never really married to the second one, right? Because the first one came back. So Shmuel says, Imrani, I say, now not really I say, but we're afraid of Maris Ayin here. Maybe people will think that she got a get from the first husband, that the first husband sent her a get from Chutz La'aretz. So therefore, we make her get divorced from the second husband as well, unless people think that was a valid marriage. Rabbi Chagai asked Rabbi Zira, didn't we learn? They said to a woman, your husband died. Now here it's v'niskat shah. You have to stress that word. In the Mishnah it talks about after nisuin. In this brisa it talks about after only kiddushin. So she never actually consummated the marriage with the second guy. And then her husband comes back. Muteris lachsolo. In the case where it's only erusin and not nisuin, she can go back to the first husband, right? Now that's the brisa. So the question is, if you're going to say that her first husband sent her a get for Chutz La'aretz, so she should be forbidden to go back to the first husband, regardless of whether the second marriage was a marriage of kiddushin or a marriage of nisuin. That should be considered, because of Maris Ayin issues, like somebody who divorced his wife, she got married to somebody else, and then she goes back to her first husband, which is a no-no, right? So therefore, she shouldn't be allowed to go back if we're afraid that the first husband, again, people get the impression the first husband sent her a divorce. So says the Gemara, let's say maybe this price is going to Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur. The Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur Omar, if she got divorced if she was divorced, then got betrothed to the second person, then ended the betrothal by a get, she's allowed to go back to the first husband. Whereas Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur holds it's only after nisuin to another husband that she can't go back to the first husband. But after kiddushin to another husband, she could go back to the first husband.
Looks like the brisa.
Right, that's like the brisa. So that's the brisa going to Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur. Doesn't mean no, that won't work. V'lo modi Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur. Didn't Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur concede shim nasan lo achron get pasla mina kahuna? It says the Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur holds that if the second guy gives her a get, then she's possible from the kuna because she was mikudeshes, and then she got a get from the second guy. But Ninan, we learned here, avol pishanasa lo achron get lo pasla mina kuna. Here it says that if the second guy to whom she was erroneously married gave her a get, she's not pasla mina kuna. Now again, according to Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur, even in an erroneous marriage, even when her husband the first husband was thought to be dead, turned out to be not to be dead, right? And then she got married to a second guy, betrothal, not kiddushin, not nisuin. Then, if she gets divorced, the second divorce is only for looks; it's pro forma, but it's enough to make her apostle of kahuna. Yet here we see there's a pro forma divorce, and the brisa says it doesn't make her apostle of kahuna. So this brisa can't be like Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur.
Is there such a thing as a divorce for Kedushin?
Yeah, sure. Kedushin requires a divorce. Here the Kedushin was not a proper Kedushin, but even still requires a divorce. Okay? Because here, they're really,
she's really married.
Yeah, she's really married first guy, right? So it says the Gemara, but the Abishna, Rabban the case of Rabbi Hilo, so Rabban the case of name Rabbi Hilo said, Kidei Levarer Yisuro Shel Rishon. The truth is that our Mishnah is in order to clarify that she's forbidden to the first fellow, and that's only Chazal decided to draw a distinction between where she was married to the second guy only by Kiddushin and married to the second guy with Nisuin. And when she was married to the second guy with Nisuin, then she needs a get to clarify that she can't go back to the first guy. However, if she only got Kiddushin to the second guy, she doesn't require a get from him, and that's why she can go back to the first one. So in fact, the Brisa and Mishnah can be reconciled. Chazal made their gzeira to show how severe the prohibition for her to go back to the original husband was, only where she was nises to the second husband. Now it's only niskacha. Now the reason for this, Chazal, we said already on top of the page, the first line says, they made her really stringent in order that she should check up before she gets remarried. So Chazal only gave that total stringency when she got Nisuin to the second guy. Because I've only got Kiddushin to the second guy without Nisuin, that shows that she hesitated to go all the way. But when she goes all the way and she has Nisuin with him, then Chazal said, fine, you want to go ahead, but we're going to throw the book at you if things go wrong. Because you have to be very sure what's going on. So that's why we made, when Nisuin comes around, we gave a get, give her a get in order to make sure that everybody knows she's also go back first one. They changed the combination.
I'm stuck out there pressing 542 going, what is going on?
They changed it today.
Today, of course,
Today.
figures. They probably changed it like a minute before I was ready to
No,
walk
they
in the
announced
door.
it this morning.
And I was waiting for you, but I figured you were
4-2-3.
Well, my son became a chassan.
Oh, Mazel
Thursday night. That's why I went to New York. New York.
No, not one. It's
Thank you.
Mazel Tov. Two.
A Chicago girl.
I had to go to New York to Chicago.
Well,
who's
she's
that?
in Stern and he's in YU.
Yeah.
Her name was Rebecca Varney.
Varney. And
She was my daughter's class.
Really?
She's a school kid.
Right, still girl. Or Torah.
and when they get married?
June 25th.
June 25th.
Right.
In New York.
No. Here, be there or be square, as they say.
Oh, very nice. Should have a lot of nachas.
Amen. Thank you.
Is there a board? Are we having a party? Is there...
Yes. Well, the date's going to be changed because as I was walking out the door, they were talking about possibly changing it. Right now, it's scheduled for Saturday night, Thanksgiving weekend, at the home of the Kahlo, which is Keeler and Greenwood.
By Thanksgiving weekend, they'll let us know where.
I'll let you know closer.
Okay, very nice. We'll have a lot of atzlach and bracha. Okay, we are so in any event, what we just got through saying is that when a girl is it's not appropriate, not a great gemara to discuss the context of an occasion. When you have a woman who was married to her first husband, she thought her first husband died, she was told her first husband died, then she got married to a second husband, their first husband comes back. So it depends what quality of marriage she had to the second husband. If the second husband she got full nisuin, so we throw the book at her, she's got to get divorced with a get from both of them, and she's up the creek. She loses everything she had in the world in both relationships, and all the kids around them are mzayim. It's very bad scene. But if all she had to the second guy was kiddushin, not nisuin, so then she can go back to the first husband without again. She doesn't need a get from the second husband. Okay. So now the Gemara says we're talking about Ad Kedun. We're up to Ad Kedun.
What's the case? And she didn't know her husband was
She thought he was dead because they told her he was dead. It was a mistaken impression.
So why did she lose everything?
Because it's a fine. Chazal threw the book at her in order to make her afraid that she should be doubly, triply sure before she gets remarried.
Even though Langston gave her permission to remarry.
Right.
She lose everything in
No. We're going to talk about that.
She lose everything in Kasuba.
So yeah, life is tough. So now we're 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 lines at the bottom. Ad Kedum. Ad Kedum Yadashe Shizish. Now our Mishnah, which says we throw the book at her, is when she knew she was married to her first husband. Mm-hmm. Then we throw the book at her if she gets married to the second husband and comes out that it was no good. Let's just say she didn't know. Now, what's the case? case where her father married her off when she was a youngster and she never knew about it. The Shmini Me'adot here from this case. Katana Shisiavia, a young girl who was married up by her father. Skip the next word in Yisgarsha, it's incorrect. And she went to Yisrael Satzma and married herself off a second time. Right? Which is really the same case in our Mishnah, but she had no way of knowing. So what's the status there? Rabbi Ila said, concerning this case, here it also should say, according to Yerushalmi Yevamos, but so he brings a proof. All the arayas, if she has licentious relations with anybody, while she's married to somebody, she's married to X, she has licentious relations with Y. So she doesn't require a get from Y except for two cases. Except for one case, except for the case where she was an Eishes Ish beforehand, and now has relations with another guy, thinking that she's off the hook. Okay, in other words, she thought it wasn't a problem because she was under the impression that her husband was dead. So in that case, she needs a get from the second guy. That's a unique case. Any other case, she doesn't need a get, right? Rabbi Akiva Omer Afachos Ishto. If somebody marries his wife's sister without knowing that it's his wife's sister, right? He didn't know. Right? He thought it was a foreigner. So it would be his wife's sister. So she too needs a get. Or he marries his brother's wife without knowing it was his brother's wife. One thing that was the case where even was permitted, and then it turned out wasn't, then it needs a get as well. So says the one, Shani Tamon ben Yodas ben Yodas. Is there any difference made there between whether she knows or not? Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Hila, they didn't draw any distinctions between whether she knew or didn't know, right? No difference made, right? Here too, Loshanya ben Yodas ben lo Yodas. Doesn't make a difference. She knows that she doesn't know. She is also meaning tough, right? Whether she was aware of her first marriage or not aware of her first marriage, and then she gets married to somebody else, right? Thinking that either that her first husband is dead or that there was no first marriage, in case she was a minor. So it's tough luck. They throw the book at her.
Where they get it from?
They had the Rabbana. They made it up. That's the way it is.
So
Okay.
it's like that case, the guy in Montreal.
Yeah, it's like the case of Kedusha Ketana, right? Exactly. Okay. Now, below Peiros, it says in the Mishnah that she doesn't have Peiros. What does it mean? Whatever Peiros the second husband ate off of her estate, whatever fruit he ate, tough on her. However, it's only what the second husband ate until the first husband came back. But if he ate stuff after the first husband got back, then that stuff she can take back, because then by that time the marriage is over. The moment the first husband reappears on the scene, the second marriage is over. So therefore, whatever fruit he ate after that was not permissible, and therefore she can sue for that back. Now, whatever she takes from them, she's got to give back, because she's not entitled to food from them. Now here, it's the opposite. It's only what she took when the first guy came back already. She has no right to take from either of them, because each one of them must divorce her. But what she took while she was still under the mistaken impression that she was the lawfully wedded wife of the second guy, right? Just like she can't get it out of him what he ate during that time, so too he can't get out of her what she ate during that time. Okay? The Vlad is a mamzer from both of them. I understand that from the second guy, the kid is a mamzer, obviously because she was married to the first guy all along. But Vlad mamzer min harishon, the Vlad is also mamzer from the first guy. How come? Right? Rabbi Zira so Amar Rabbi Akiva. It's like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva Amar Haba Sotaso Havlad mamzer. If you have relations with your wife after she was adulterous, so the child is a mamzer. That's because there's it's allowed to have relations with your wife after she was adulterous, right? And Rabbi Akiva says that even the result of union, which falls under the prohibition of a negative command, a lav, which is not susceptible to the death penalty, is enough to make the kid a mamzer. So our mission is like Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, similarly, Rabbi Akiva holds, "Hamachzir grushosa mishanisa zavlad mamzer." If you were married to a woman, divorced her, she married somebody else, and then you took her back. If you have relations with her, she has a kid. According to Rabbi Akiva, the kid is a mamzer. Says Gemara, no, not true. Rabbi Yerushalmi said vlad kosher. In both of these cases, if you have relations with a sota, have relations with your divorcee who you took back, so the kid is okay. That, in fact, the Bavli says as well that the kid is okay. The reason why the kid is okay is because even Rabbi Akiva agrees that there's certain types of forbidden relationships which don't generate mamzerus. For example, nida. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees that when it's relations with his wife who's a nida, it's not a mamzer, right? And so here, these are commands. These are not a rayas. It says here that the Mefarshim bring down from the Bavli. And the Bavli says there's the same type of tuma which prevails in a rayas situation doesn't prevail in the extrinsic prohibition one has not to have relations with a sota or not to have relations with a Machzir Grushosa, right? This is kind of like a side prohibition. It's not a rayas prohibition.
But he's considered like an out of wedlock child.
Yeah, but there's no deficit.
Not a
right? There's no deficit in out of wedlock child.
Stigma to the child, but not a mamzer.
Right, but it's not a mamzerus in any way, shape, or form. It's not even a stigma to the child. And there's no stigma in out of wedlock children in Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no stigma. It's not like Christianity. So amen. So says the Gemara, Hamachzir grushos. Excuse me. Rabbi Yosef B'Shem Ra'il said Divrei Yaakov Lav Kosher. Kigita Kein Mamzera. So why Taka is the second girl, the child from the first guy, Mamzer, Zera Rabbanan, right? It's Zera Rabbanan, just like she needs a get for the first guy, even though it's not her fault that she went to marry the second guy, she was really, misled. So too, her Mamzer is a Mamzer de Rabbanan. There's no, only, say the Mefarshim here, interestingly, as long as she's still married to the second guy. But let's say after she's supposed to get divorced from both of them, right? But let's say she only got divorced from the second guy, went back to her first husband, which she's not supposed to do. So the kid at that point is not a mamzer, right? Because the takana de Rabbanan was only on that interval when she was having relations with the second guy, despite the fact that her first husband was alive. Okay? Or if at that time she had relations with the first guy, despite the fact that she hadn't yet gotten her divorce from the second guy. But once she gets a divorce from the second guy, if she goes back to the first guy, although that's forbidden, the kid is not a mamzer at that point.
What if she wants to divorce the first guy and stay married to the
She
second?
can't. Because she's also then, because he was had adulterous relations with her, even though he was unaware. It says Gemara, what's actually the two opinions? Whether the problem is that whether we hold Rabbi Akiva holds that Abola Soita, the kid is a mamzer, or whether we hold that it's a Perkzer Rabbanan. The case is this case, which I just talked to you about. Nosal Hasheni get, the second guy gave her a get. V'achakach Baal Rishon, and then the first guy had relations with her. Al Daited Rabbi Ba B'Shem Rabbi Zira, according to Rabbi Ba named Rabbi Zira, who holds that Rabbi Akiva says that the child born of a sota is a mamzer, havlad mamzer, Rabbi Akiva. Once a sota, always sota. If she had adulterous relations, she's always permanently forbidden to you. Al Daited Rabbi Yosef Yerushalmi Yevamos, who says it's only Xer the Rabbanan, and she's not considered to have the child of the soul does not consider it to be a mamzer. The Yaakov Lav Kosher, once she gets divorced from the second guy, the relations she has with the first guy, even though forbidden, do not produce a mamzer. Okay? If either one of them is a Kohen, they can't go to her funeral. Sure, they're happy to see her go. But Hadahi the Tzai Rav Chia, that's what Rabbi Chia said. The Tami Adam Lishtok Share, a person goes to the funeral of his wife who is kosher, the Tami Lishtok Psul, he can't go to the funeral of his wife who is puzzled. There's a certain Tanoim, we enumerate 13 things, 13 deficits in our Mishnah, which she undergoes. These tiny, our boss had over. So Tanaim enumerated 14 deficits in our Mishnah. He said that she loses 13 things. They say that when it says that neither one of them can get her mitzvah, something she finds, or her handiwork, that's one thing, mitzvah and handiwork. You said 14 things. He said each one of those two things, mitzvah, maisiyah, there are two separate categories, and therefore it's 14 categories as opposed to 13. Period. Okay, new sugya. Well, not now, it's all the same sugya, but the new tangent. Very interesting one. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Leviah shezin ochels b'maiser. Now this is contrary to what we said in the previous parak, and the one is going to pick up on this. In the previous parak we said maiser is kedusha. We don't pass that way, of course, but in the previous parak we did say maiser is kedusha, and therefore if a Levi gets defiled, they can't eat maiser anymore, right? We're saying no, a Leviah who was mizana, she was adulterous, she can eat maiser. The Tani came, we learned this in the Brisa. It says Leviah shenish beis o shaba, a Leviah was taken to captivity, and the person, the guy, had relations with her. Or anybody who's posted to Leviah had relations with her. She doesn't lose truma as a result. This is the general principle. Leviim who are defiled from their mother, we're not concerned that they're considered to be possible. So two interpretations in the Korban. One is that their mothers were chalolos. So for long as the father was a Levi, even if the mother's chalola, the kid is still a Levi. There's no such thing as a chalol by a Levi, right? That's one interpretation. Another interpretation, which is the Korban gives, which is very interesting, based on the Gemara in Bavli, is that if the mother is a Leviah, and the father is a goy, so the child is a Levi. Because in that case, the goy is if he is not there, and Leviah is so the Shevet Levi is so strong that it's unlike the other Shvatim, it could pass even by the mother by itself. It's a fascinating concept. Okay?
That's not true for a Kohen.
It's not true by anything. No, it's not true by anything. Only by Leviah, because it's like a Kohen would pass too, but it's defiled. The Kun is defiled by having relations with the goy, right? But Leviah is stronger, and that's what can be passed down. And on the other hand, it's not defiled by having relations with the goy, so that's why that's how it would work. Which is a very, very interesting chiddush if it's true. Okay, says Gemara further. V'atzinan, as Maraki said, that's true. Didn't we learn Bas Levi Mina Maiser? We learned that there's a Leviah who's defiled from eating Maiser. Right, and so it's defiled being meiser if she has meaning, and that's in the previous pair where it says if she's married to Yisrael, then she can't eat meiser anymore. How could that be? We just said Leviah is very hardy; she can't get rendered unfit, right? So it says Yisrael, the other men are ben. I'll tell you where that happens. Not because of her husband or whoever has relations with her. That doesn't render her unfit. But if she has a kid from a husband who's not a Levi, who's not a goy either, so that kid renders her unfit to eat meiser. Why is that? Because now she's already the mother of Yisrael. To be the wife of Yisrael doesn't impinge upon her from eating truma, according to meiser, according to this Gemara, but to be the mother of Yisrael does impinge upon her.
Similar to a Kohenes.
Well, Kohenes, even if she's married to Yisrael, can't eat truma.
Right, when she has
no, but even the marriage itself, even there's no, but here the marriage itself doesn't do it. It's only the child. Okay, of course we don't pass on this because we pass on Abraham came Meiser, but that's the interesting Yerushalmi. Says where Bray Bisna Mishnah Rishon Levi says Kohena Shezina is a very cool Gemara. Rabbi Bisna Levi said Kohena Shezines, a Kohenes who went who was Mizana. So she can't be a Kohenes anymore, right? But she doesn't drop down 2 levels. She doesn't become Israeli. She becomes a Leviah, right? Ochels b'maiser, she can eat maiser. But lo matzisa, isn't that obvious from the Mishnah in the previous paragraph? It says, Bas Kohen mina truma. A Bas Kohen is defiled when she has forbidden relations from truma. Or mi maiser ochels. It sounds like she can't eat maiser. Says Mar Commandment ain't nicely mice lacuna. This is going we're going according to opinion that holds he can't normally give miser to kuna. Nevertheless, when she drops down a level, then you can give her miser when she drops down a level because of her having had a improper relations.
So this shows that the miser does not have kedusha.
What?
Does this show that?
No, it has some. No, it has kedusha because she has to be a kohenes psul. She has to start up being kohenes.
Yeah, but on the other hand, she's zona.
Yeah, so kohenes plus zona, so she goes at one level to Levia. That's what we're saying. Mm-hmm. So it's quasi kedusha, not full kedusha, not a lack of kedusha according to this Gemara. So it says Gemara, Amrei Nasa said Milei on the Rabbanan Pliyin. The words of the rabbis argue and say that she drops down all the way. Where's that? The Amrei Behilo B'Shem Ben Yosina B'Shem Rayosha said, Kohen Shbal Grusha. Very interesting case. A Kohen, it seems that it's a Bavli, but I don't remember it. A Kohen has relations with a divorcee, Voli Ben, and he has a kid. Umesa Avato Shloshim, and the father dies in the first 30 days of his kid's birth. Ben Chayv Luftos is Atzmut. The kid has to redeem himself. Pidyon Arben. After 30 days, we assume that his father redeemed him. Because why do we say? Because fathers are diligent about this, even particularly Kohanim. Since Kohanim are redeem others, you certainly be aware to be redeem his son. So the Meich HaMayim has a very interesting interpretation of this proof here, very cute. He says that if it were true that a Kohen, when defiled, goes down, is ratcheted down only one notch to Levi, so then the kid should require Pidyon Arben. Because the kid is true, is Nischala, because it was Kohen with a Grusha, but he should be at least a Levi, and as a Levi, he should be parted from Pidyon Arben. Since there's Pidyon Arben, it means you drop down 2 notches. You drop down from a Kohen all the way down to Yisrael. So you must argue also in the previous corner that a daughter of a Kohen who had Biasnus, had licentious relations, drops down all the way to Yisrael and loses therefore right even to eat Meiser.
Also, I don't recall that a Kohen dropped down to a Levi in Avoda.
No, nothing like that.
So that would be the same thing.
Right. It seems that we paskin we paskin all the way. Right. Okay? True. Which is a chiddush though, because you would think that they go down to Levi. It's possible, because the Levi who's Mizana still remains a Levi, right? But a Kohen who's Mizana, the higher they are, the farther they fall, right? So since he started up higher, when he falls down further.
We live, you don't want those kind of.
Okay. Says more further. Came back to the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says neither. Let's say there's a halacha called Ksuvas Banim Dikrin, which is that if a mother predeceases a father, or if a wife predeceases her husband, so ksuva, she can write a document which allows her ksuva, which she doesn't get because she died first, to go to her children, to her male children. It's called ksuvas banim dikrin. So you can't write that here. You can't do this in this case because no ksuvas banim dikrin, because she has no rights whatsoever, not even to pass it on to her heirs. So it says more of Lokvar Tanisa that we learn already in Ksuva, that she doesn't get a Ksuva. Says more on Rabbi Yossi ben Yaakov Shlo Tomar. No, if I would not have told you that Ksuva's Banim Dikrim, that which allots the Ksuva to her heirs doesn't work, I would have said Ba'kansu. They only find her, B'Lokansu Yasher. They didn't find her heirs. So therefore, you shouldn't come to that conclusion. That's why I have to tell you that they find her heirs as well, that her heirs can't get it as well. That's why it says say that she doesn't get ksuva, and also that her heirs don't get the ksuva either. Okay, now getting back to a real Yevamos sugi, I've told it for a while. Sota kishem she asul about kachi asul boel. This we know. A woman has adulterous relations, or she was married to her husband. She's also to her husband, and she's also to the paramour, right? To her adulterer, right? Now, that's a given. That's easy, right? Now it gets complex. She can't marry the brother of her husband, right? She's no longer if her husband dies and childless, there's no evil, because she was adulteress. She's also the husband. She's also the yavam. So too, if her lover dies, she's also to her lover's brother. It's reflexive. It's whatever the principle is, it reflects each other. Okay.
Even though she wasn't married to her.
Right. Even though. Right. Exactly. It's a fascinating concept, right? We take it even a step further. The tzara of a sota, in other words, a man was married to two wives, one of which was licentious, right? Then he drops dead. So the both wives, both the sota and the co-wife, are also to be misyabim, right? So that we say it also by the boel, by the paramour, right? Just like the co-wife of a sota, of the adulterous woman, is forbidden to her brother-in-law if her husband dies childless. Do I say that the co-wife of the sota is usher to the brother of the lover? Now, this is talking about, of course, a case where the lover married her despite the prohibition, right? He's not allowed to marry her, but he went and married her anyway after her husband divorced her, after her husband died. And he had another wife, the Boel, right? He had his own wife and this woman with whom he had the adulterous relations, who he married now subsequently. So then he drops dead, as he should. So then what happens? Can his brother be miyabim, at least the co-wife, right? So that's what Gemara is asking. Is that clear? Let's hear from our case. Says Gemara, Isha shal ba'al medina sayom. Our Mishnah. Woman went, her husband went to Chutzat. Brahmalani came back and they said to her, Meis ba'alech, your husband died. Now case deviates. It's actually a Bryce and not our Mishnah. Vayelo yavam kan. She has a yavam. Okay, her husband dies, so she goes to the brother, lives with the brother-in-law, right? V'yibma. Umeis. Then the yavam dies. The yavam actually does drop dead. This is a real death. And now her husband comes back. But the plot thickens. In the meantime, the brother whom she had been misyabemes through the absence had another wife. Okay? So there were two wives here. Okay? So she was married to Reuven. Reuven drops dead, or allegedly drops dead, we don't know. She goes and she was misyabemes to Shimon. Shimon now has this wife, who's his Yevama, and another wife. Now Shimon drops dead. Reuven comes back. So Reuven's original wife can't go back to Reuven, right? That's obvious because she's a sota, right? Can Reuven's other wife be misyabemes? Can Shimon's other wife be misyabemes to Reuven, right? That's the question. So says the Gemara concerning that case, Aser ba umuta b'tzarasa. Reuven may not remarry his own prior wife, but he's allowed to marry the co-wife.
But she's a sota. But the original wife is a sota. So how could?
No, I'm sorry. You're right. We'll come back and say I made a mistake. First thing I made is a mistake. If Reuven still had another wife, I apologize. That's the next line I'm going to just translate. If Reuven still had another wife, so he's allowed to remain with his other wife. And all of them, I'm Farshim ask, of course he's allowed to remain with his other wife. It goes without saying, right? She didn't do anything wrong. So I don't know. They don't want to give an answer. They just say it's a setup for the next case, which is what I just told you. Aser boy is not allowed to marry his wife, to take his wife, who in the meantime was misyabim to his brother. But a mutzar beish sachiv, he's allowed to take his brother's other wife who fell before him. That's what we're talking about. Okay? Now, says the Gemara, now we're going to get to brass tacks. Veishes achiv, I understand. Isn't his brother's other wife lo katzara soitahi? That's your question, right? Isn't she like the co-wife of a soita? Now, let's bear in mind something here. This is all dealing with fiction. This is all fiction here. Because is she's not a co-wife of a sota because the Yibum was not about Yibum. The only way, the Gemara asks you a question, but we have to be aware, it's all a Marisayan issue. In other words, the fact that Reuven's wife was Misyabemis to Shimon was a fictitious transaction, because Reuven was still alive and well, he just wasn't around, right? But the Gemara is saying, well, based on the principle of our Mishnah, that we view it as if it was a valid marriage, because of what we said earlier this evening, that maybe Reuven, people are going to think that Reuven died and that it was a legitimate Yibum. So therefore, we treat it as fictitiously as if Shimon was married simultaneously to the Sota and to his own wife, right? And then vice versa. Then the question is, when Reuven comes back, why can Reuven take Shimon's other wife? Hi, she's a Tzora Soita, right? That's the Gemara's question, right? So it's all based on the fiction that there actually was a valid Yibum. That we understand, right? The Yibum was actually not valid, right? But nevertheless, see, the Gemara says, "Lo ket Tzora Soita." Isn't she like a Tzora Soita? Hadamras teaches us must be Tzora Soita muteres lachishabal. It teaches us that the co-wife of a sota is permitted to the brother of the lover, because that's really what's happening here. Reuven, Shimon vis-a-vis Reuven is like an adulterer, right? It's true, it's unintentional, but Shimon vis-a-vis Reuven is like an adulterer, right? And therefore, and now when Reuven wants to take the co-wife of his own wife, who was Misyabemes improperly to Shimon, so he is the Achiv Shaboel, the brother of the person who was an adulterer, right? Taking the co-wife of the adulterous wife. And it says here it's mutter. So therefore we see that the brother can take the co-wife of the adulterous
The
wife.
cases are different because this was the Shem Mitzvah. This Yibum occurred the Shem Mitzvah.
Right, we're not differentiating though.
Was pure adultery.
Right, but we're not differentiating. That's exactly the parallel. Because we're looking at, because we saw in our missionary that we even though theoretically everything here was done lishma, but we throw the book at them. Okay, we keep it to here too. We say, yeah, it's true they had the utmost high kavanas, but tough luck. We look at the case as the case appears to us without the sentiments. Okay, so that's how we're taking. So again, we see Hadam Rashid Sar Saitim Mutar Sachim Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, it's not the same thing. Asyan Kirabanan de Tamon. This is going like the rabbis over there. The rabbis over there hold that this is the different case. We had this back on Nun Dalun base, Nun Gimel base. That what do the rabbis over there say? The Talmud Karbon Tamon. Tam Rabbi Hila. That Rabbi Hila said of that we learned over there in Bavel. Kol Reis Einan Tzrichus Menu Get and Chutz Me'eshes Ish Bilvad. The only time a get is required from the second husband is when we have a case like our Mishnah where the first husband is presumed dead and she married somebody else, and there she can't go back to the first husband, and because she needs a get from the second husband, right? Because we threw the book at her. However, our case over here is a case where, like you differentiated, it's a case of Yibu, right? And by Yibu, it doesn't fit the same criteria as our Mishnah. So this doesn't fit the same criteria. Mishnah doesn't require a get. Since it doesn't require a get, that's why the Reuven could take Shimon's co-wife. But it's not comparable to a case where there is a full-blown get required because there was a true adulterous relationship, right? Here was a mistake, and that's why no get is required. But when there's a true adulterous relationship, and the sota's got to get divorced, right? And her marriage to the Boel is a real and bad marriage, maybe there, Taka. The Tzara Soita, the Kohen Sota, is forbidden to the brother of the adulterer, as opposed to over here, where it was all done under other types of pretext, of legitimate pretext, and maybe here it's not comparable. Okay.
This makes more sense.
Now, that of course makes sense to you because that's the way you hold. Well, the one is immediately going to reject that. Rabbi Akiva says, now this we also had before, Rabbi Akiva Omer, Af achos ishto. Also, this case requires, well, not achos ishto, also a case where you mistakenly marry your wife's sister requires a get. Ve'eshesach. And our case over here, where you mistakenly are miyabim, your brother's co-wife, your brother's wife, does require a get. And continuing along this line, Baran Karbanan Dahacha, like the rabbis over here in Eretz, so who holik Rabbi Akiva to require a get. So, according to that perspective, it is a good raya, because that means that here if we regard the second, the yavam, from the yavam she requires a get. Well, I should say from the yavam she married. Where the yavam is still alive, of course Shimon is dead now. But where Shimon's still alive, she will require a get in order from Shimon, right? So that means that we do regard the Yibum situation as if it was a true adulterous situation, and if we say that despite that, in our case, she can go back to Reuben, so that would be evidence that that Sarah, not she can go back to Reuben. If we said despite that, her co-wife can be married to Reuben, so that would be evidence that the co-wife of a Sota who's married to the adulterer can also be taken by the brother. Okay? So again, it depends who you hold like. If we hold like you, that since it's Yibum, it's a different situation, it's a mitigating circumstance, so therefore there's no way to extrapolate from here to a case where an adulterer takes his woman, the adulteress, and that and whether when the adulterer dies, his brother can do Yibum on the remaining wife, because that's a case where there's true adultery, and this is only a case where there's mistaken yibum. But if we hold Rabbi Akiva that we give us all the severity of true adultery, and that therefore if Shimon is still alive and Reuben come back, Shimon actually has to give a get to this woman, so then it is a valid proof. That's what we're saying. And then that would prove to us that Saras Soita, the co-wife of a Sota, is permitted to marry the brother of the adulterer, if over here we see that the co-wife of Shimon is permitted to Reuben after Shimon dies. Okay? So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Achia b'shem Amar b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Achia says the name Rabbi Yochanan. Now Rabbi Achia, the name of the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, is really explaining the position of the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, which is that we throw the book even in case of Yibum, right? They say she requires to get. Why is that? Mishum, because Mishum, here the Korban changes gears. If you take a look at the top line, Korban it changes it to Mishum Hilchos Eshes Ish Karnaba, because and since he acquires her, so therefore it's far worse and requires a get. Says Mar. Oh, wait a second. Maybe Dr. Spell was right after all, says the Mar. Not quite. That's not what it says here. But listen. Maybe that already makes it not comparable for another reason. Because if I look at it as with all the severity of our Mishnah, so then it should erva he should be erva he, right? It says it says just here erva on top line should be erva he. A sota is not an erva. It's prohibited to the boel, but it's not an erva. But if you look at this woman, Reuven, the wife of Reuven, who thought Reuven was dead, if you look at her with all the severity, as if when she married Shimon, right? As if she was fully married to Shimon, and that's why she needs a get from both, which is like what the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael hold. Despite the fact that they thought they were doing Yibum, we throw the book at her. That's far worse than a sota. You've upped the ante so dramatically that you can't extrapolate anymore to sota either. It's true, according to the rabbis in Chutz and Bavel, you can't extrapolate from Yibum to sota because Yibum was not so terrible, right? They thought they were doing the right thing. But on the other hand, if you require a get, then you've upped it. You can't extrapolate either, because the reason why she can't go back, the reason why, it's simply not comparable case anymore, because she now, whatever you say in this case, it's not comparable to Tzara Soita, because here she became now midrabanan, an erva on her first husband, right? Because she requires a get from Shimon, where Shimon's still alive, she requires a get from Shimon. So how can you compare it to Tzoras Erva, right? Right? The erva poteres tzarasa. An erva, if she's an erva, so she mamish paters her tzara, right? And a tzara should be forbidden altogether, right? And the truth is, the whole brisa now is up to date, because the brisa says that Shimon's co-wife can go to Ruvain and be Misyabemis. That shouldn't be true. If you look at Ruvain's wife who was Misyabemis to Shimon, as if she was an Eshes Ish who was forbidden to Shimon, and therefore she requires a get from Shimon, and can't go back to Ruvain either, so she's mamish an erva here to Shimon. She's mamish an erva to Shimon, yet married to Shimon, so then her co-wife, right, mamish an erva to Ruvain. She's mamish an erva to Ruvain, and married to Shimon. Of course, she's not really married to Shimon because Reuven is still alive. But we give her we look at it as if she was married to Shimon, and that's her. She requires a get from Shimon. So her co-wife, right, Shimon's other wife, is a Tzoras Erva. How could she be married to be Misabemis to Reuven after Shimon dies, right? This is the whole price is cockamamie. Forget about riots back and forth to Tzoras Soita. It doesn't make any sense anymore, right? How can she go back to Reuven? So it says, how can go back? How can the co-wife go to Reuven? So Rabbi China says, "Afilu krabanan da'achasi." The word Bryce works out even according to the rabbis over here. You know why? But konsu v'lo konsu should be b'tzarosa. Look, the whole thing is the rabbanan. We're dealing with. She's not really married to Shimon, right? You're looking as if she's married to Shimon, so she should need a get, right? And you make her get from Shimon, even though she's still married to him the whole time. We thought Reuven stayed, but he wasn't, right? But that's only a bluff. The Rabbanan made that up in order to ensure that she doesn't go back to Reuven. But in reality, she never was married to Shimon. So therefore, it's not a true Tzoras Erva, right? It's not a true Erva. She wasn't married to Shimon. So therefore, Shimon's other wife is not a true Tzoras Erva. So when they made this the Rabbanan Gezerah to bluff it up, to bloat it up as if she was married to Shimon, that she required a get, they made a Gezerah on her, but they didn't make a Gezerah on her Tzorah. So therefore the co-wife can go and be Mizabemis to Reuven. Okay? Again, because this whole thing is wrong, the Rabbanans and the Rabbanans and the Rabbanans. Because Midaraisa, just go back to Reuven and forget about Shimon. But Midarabanan, we made it as if she was married to Shimon, and she requires a get from Shimon according to the Rabbanan Eretz Yisrael, right? Not the Rabbanan Bavel. They hold like you. She doesn't require a get because it's only evil. But in Rabbanan, she requires a get. But that get is only since it's all just made up, so therefore her tzara can be Mishabemis. Amnechina Braid Rav Hillel, Achina son of Rav Hillel said, Inkra Bonan de Tamon, hey, like the rabbis in Bavel, like Dr. Smedel. Yeah, mutarba. Why can't you go back to her husband? It's only Hebrew. Why can't you go back to her husband? She thought she was doing the right thing, right? The Gemara doesn't answer. It's a good question. Okay? We don't know. But Bryce said she can. We don't know why not, but she can. Okay? But that's the ultimate result of your sentimental approach to it. Okay? No, they don't have refutations. It makes sense from that perspective. Rabbi Zir B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Tzara Sota Asura. Getting back to the actual crux of the issue. The co-wife of a Sota is forbidden to the brother of the Boel, to the brother of the adulterer. The Tzara is Grusha Muteris. If, however, let's say somebody had a woman he divorced, she got married to somebody else, then he took her back, right? And then her husband dies and leaves two wives, so the co-wife is mutter to be Misiah Bemis. Okay? Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Yaakov or Acham B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, "Called tzaros mutaros." Now there are many tzaros. It doesn't mean literally all tzaros are mutaros. It means the tzara of an island is mutar. There's certain tzaros which are permitted, right? The co-wife of certain types of prohibitions are permitted to be Misiah Bemis, such as if one wife is an islandess, the other wife can be Misiah Bemis, other cases like that. But Chutz Mitzara Sota, Tzara Sota is forbidden. The co-wife of a Sota is forbidden to go and be Misiah Bemis, both by the brother of the husband who had the adultery committed against him, and by the brother of the Boel. Shmuel Amar, Grusha Atzma Muteres L'Beisah. This is an interesting thing. If a person took back, he says, if a person took back his Grusha improperly, he wasn't supposed to, and then he died, the brother's allowed to be Miyabimar. Because that Isser is a situational Isser. Only on him, but the brother can take her. It's a fascinating thing, right? Says the Gemara, Ma Polik. What is Shmuel arguing? What does Shmuel say about Tzara Sota? Says no. Begin to have an asking B'Tzaros lo adkin grushos. Since they were talking about the other ones, they were talking about Tzaros. They weren't talking about the grushos themselves. But in Echanami, it could be everybody reads the Shmuel that she's muteres l'isyabein. Tzara Sota lo mi'asura. Why is the Kohav of a Sota forbidden? It's not, everybody knew it's not, I shouldn't say. Rabbi Yochanan Atzoi D'Rabbanan. Mereach erba naguba. It sounds like an erba. She's not really an erba. It's extrinsic prohibition. It's like an erba. Schmeckt. Smells bad. So therefore we don't allow it. Rav says, according to Ridbaz, it is a daraisa. Because it says a sota v'nisra v'nitma. And therefore she's like an erba, and therefore her co-wife is forbidden to be misyabim, midaraisa, not just midrabanan. Okay?
It's guilt by association.
It's guilt by association, yeah. Now, the Mishnah goes on to bring that everybody who argues on the first Mishnah says we don't throw the book of the second wife. That's what the Mishnah is about to do. But the truth is we don't pass like any opinion in the second Mishnah. We pass and throw the book. I said second wife, that's the second husband. We throw the book. But right, all these guys have more rachmanis. All these guys we don't pass like. Rabbi Yosef she does get a ksuba from her first husband. Rabbi Yosef the first husband still can't, whatever she finds, whatever handiwork she has, and can cancel her vows. Rabbi Shimon Omer, if she has either relations or the yibum or chalitza from the brother of the first one, then Potros are saying then nobody else, no other co-wife requires chalitz or yibum. And the child from the first husband also is not a mamzer. Now we don't pass the them. We're machmer. All these things doesn't do any good. Period. No. Now the other question. Nisa shelo birshus. What if she gets married without the permission of Beis Din? Now, without permission of Beis Din doesn't mean she wasn't allowed to get married. She was allowed to get married, but she didn't need Beis Din to pass on it. In that case, if she had two witnesses that her husband died. Two witnesses, not just one. And two witnesses, she doesn't need Beis Din's permission. The two witnesses that her husband died, they broke lying. But she thought she was okay, right? These days, she can go back to her first husband. We don't pass this way either. Don't worry. Okay? These is how we Beis Din. If she only had one aid, and if she had Beis Din to allow her to get remarried, then Teitze, she's got to get divorced, as the first Mishnah said. However, interestingly, I skipped the line, right? No, I didn't. However, P'tur min ha-korban. If Beis Din passed and she can get remarried, then she's exempt from the korban because it's Beis Din's fault, right? We don't pass that either. She has to bring the korban.
Beis Din doesn't bring the korban.
That's what the Mishnah says. Well, we don't pass them like this Mishnah. Then what is going to explain that? Shelo be Beis Din. If it's not on Beis Din to say so Beis Din doesn't have liability. Teitze, she got divorced, but korban, she has to bring korban herself. Yafi koch shel Beis Din shel p'tur min ha-korban. So the Beis Din, when Beis Din's matir, so in a way it's better because she's part of in the korban. According to this Mishnah, like we know basket. Harua Beis Din we now. What if Beis Din passed to get remarried? But she didn't get remarried. Kukla, she went and she was mizana. She went and just had a good time, right? No, chayev's the korban. Then she herself has to bring korban anyway. Why? Shaloi tu elinasa. They gave her dispensation to go get married, but not to go fool around. Okay. Rabbi Ba, Rabbi Nuna, Rabbi Zira, Tarvei, Norman, they both said, Hazel Roshel Shel Perek. This is, it's not in our case. In the case later in the Perek, they said, it's like the beginning of the Perek, meaning like this case. In other words, the case later on in the Perek is like the case we're learning here, which is the Roshel Shel Perek. Rabbi Yossi B'shar called Varim. Meaning, what does Rabbi Yossi say about all the rest of the stuff? It says, Ksuvish gets her first husband. But what about all the other 12 things mentioned in the first Mishnah? So Nishmini min adot, so now from here. Rabbi Yossi, and this is the case later on in the parak. Rabbi Yossi Mer Koshu Posai De'acherim, anytime he parcels other people, meaning the first husband renders her unfit to a second husband, which is the case. So he loses everything himself. Anytime he doesn't parcel anybody else, because there is no second husband, in cases later on in the parak, and he doesn't parcel for himself. But here, since there are two husbands, and the second husband loses because of the first husband, so he loses everything, and therefore all Rabbi Yossi holds is that she gets a ksuba. But everything else, she loses, he loses, all other relationships are severed. That case is the case of our parak, which means Hadar Marah, that teaches us Lo Choluk Rabbi Yossi B'Shar Kol Dvar. Rabbi Yossi doesn't argue that everything else she loses except for the ksuva. Only the ksuva he holds she gets from the first husband.